Good evening and welcome everyone to the Community Grants Program information session for the 2025 grants. My name is Stephen O'Shea. I'm a program coordinator with the City of New Westminster, and my time working for the city is split between the Community Grants Program and also with the Art and Technology Department, also known as the New Media Gallery in Anvil Center. And it's my pleasure to welcome you here this evening. I'm joined by my colleague, Jen Arbo, who is the Supervisor of Community Partnerships Division, and we're thrilled to have you join us this evening. As we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we recognize and respect that New Westminster is on the unceded and unsurrendered land of the Ho'okamalum-speaking people. We acknowledge that colonialism has made invisible their histories in connection to the land, and as a city, we are learning and building relationships with the people whose land we are upon. I'd like to begin with some housekeeping for this digital session that we'll be a part of. Of course, you're welcome to keep your cameras turned off. There's no requirement for you to have them on. Should you have them on, you may show up in the recording, and so we want you to be aware of that. We ask that you please stay muted through the entire presentation and not turn your microphone on. And we also ask that you put your questions into the chat, and we will address all questions at the end of the presentation. It's anticipated that the presentation will take approximately 40 minutes for us to go through, and then we will have a chance for questions to be answered. We ask that your questions be very broad and general, directed to the grant program itself, and not specifically about your organization and the questions that you may have for the scenario of your application. Instead, we ask in that scenario that you would if you're looking for specific answers to your questions about your organization and your application, to contact us at grants@newwestcity.ca, and we'd be more than happy to either answer them via email or set up an appointment so that we can get you more clarity. But today's session, we asked for just general questions about the program. Over the next 40 minutes together, we'll move through these 9 sections. I will introduce the portfolios, and then I will share with you the grant types within the program. I will share the program budget, the timeline, how the application form works, and I will show you an example of this new platform. We'll speak about the budget tab, and then I will share about the application review. You'll learn who the staff advisors are, and then the frequently asked questions and your questions at the end. For the Community Grants Program, we have 3 main portfolios that we ask you to self-identify as you would be applying under. And these portfolios are community livability and social equity, which we consider grants for living. Portfolio 2 is social and cultural vibrancy. These are grants for involvement. And portfolio 3, community economic activators, are grants for growth. In our first portfolio, the community livability and social equity, these grants support proposed activities by community partners that decrease the vulnerability of people in our community, enhance community safety and the quality of life, ensure children receive quality childcare, and improve urban and natural environment. Inside of this portfolio, there are subject areas that we ask you to, again, to determine if your application would fall under. This includes childcare, environment, or community wellness. And each of these subject areas have a staff advisor who can support you. So please feel free to reach out to them as necessary in the development of your application. In portfolio 2, we have the social and cultural vibrancy that supports proposed activities by community partners in arts, culture, heritage, sports, and recreation that broaden participation, enrich the vibrancy, expression, and creativity of our community, honor the community's unique heritage, and create and recognize opportunities for achievement and innovation. Inside of this portfolio, we have subject matter areas that include amateur sport, the sport travel grant, arts, community festivals and events, and heritage. Our third and final portfolio is the Community Economic Activators. These are grants for growth. This is our smallest grant portfolio, and it is limited to only the following type of organizations that can apply. This would be New Westminster-based business improvement associations, New Westminster-based Chamber of Commerce, New Westminster-based associations that promote tourism within New Westminster. If you have any questions in which portfolio you think you might identify with, please contact us at grants@newwestcity.ca. We would be more than happy to provide you with clarity in where you best would fit. We're asking organizations to only pick one portfolio to apply under this year because there's only the ability to apply with one application form. So if you're finding that you think you straddle one or the other, please contact me, and I would be more than happy to work with you to find the right portfolio. With the three portfolio types, you then consider which grant type that you're interested in applying for. And we have two, and I'm happy to explain the difference between the two of them. The first one is for cash grants up to $20,000. This is for anything that would fit under any of the portfolios, but is looking for funding for only up to $20,000. If you are a first-time applicant to the City of New Westminster, you are only eligible for the cash grant up to $20,000. If you have applied and received funding from the city before, you are eligible for the cash grant and city services, and you can apply for up to $75,000, provided you are applying for proposed activities that you have previously and successfully delivered. And so this is a grant type that you'll answer the question in the first two tabs under eligibility. And depending on which one you pick will determine the length of the application that you fill out. So it's a shorter application to fill out the cash grants. This cash grant and city services grant is a much longer application form. I will mention here that before I move to the next slide that I've been using a lot of terminology that we do our best to define in the glossary document. We refer to all organizations as community partners. This includes charities, this includes nonprofits, this includes sports organizations, this includes unincorporated community groups. So that if you do not have a nonprofit status, but you are a group, you are eligible to apply for these grants. However, if you are a for-profit business or an individual applying on your own, you are not eligible for this program. The only exception for individuals to apply would be if you are an athlete and you are specifically using the sports travel grant for reimbursement of already completed travel. And so the other terminology that I've been using up till now that I'd like to explain is proposed activities. This is a catch-all term that regardless of whether you're putting on a program, whether you're putting on a service, whether it's an activity, a festival, we use a broader term to say that over the next year in 2025, your organization will undertake activities. And in this application process, you are putting forward a proposal. You are proposing that you will undertake these activities, and we will be reviewing your application to determine the suitability for funding. But instead of referring to project, festival, event, we've gone to a much more broader term, proposed activities. And so you'll see that throughout the application guide, you'll see that throughout this presentation, and it's a term that is meant to be all-encompassing and representative of the broad diversity of what the nonprofit sector contributes to New Westminster. This program recognizes the strength of the nonprofit sector here in New Westminster in its service delivery, in the programming and events that it delivers, and we're making this program reflective of that work that is undertaken. So we want that to be clear for everyone who is interested in this program. As I mentioned, you need to, as part of your eligibility, identify to us if you're a charity, if you're a nonprofit, and there's a drop-down menu in the questions that will allow you to make that selection. Additionally, in one of the last tabs in the application form that I will show you, you will need to upload documents, including the minutes of your last AGM, your most recent financial statements for your most recently completed fiscal year, your constitution and bylaws, your budget for the proposed activities, as well as documentation that may support the request. This is for established organizations, those that are new, have not completed a fiscal year, and these documents don't exist yet. It's not a requirement in that sense for new organizations, but if you're an existing organization, we do expect that you would upload these documents at the end of your application. So as I said, cash grants, the first grant type is funding up to $20,000. Eligible requests include annual programming delivery costs, one-time projects, capital items essential to the delivery of the program, seed money to develop and launch new programs or ideas, events, equipment, services, and staff professional development. Typically, in a historic way, grants in this portfolio, or sorry, in this grant type, excuse me, have ranged anywhere from $500 to $7,000. And as I said, this grant type has a shorter application form. Moving into the city services and cash grant and city services grant, that's a maximum of $75,000, and that is inclusive of both your cash request and your city services request. The most that you can ask for in this program is $75,000. Eligible requests in terms of city services would include garbage and recycling service, road closures, police services, and there's more information about exactly what city services are and which ones are available on the city's website at newwestcity.ca/grants. If you have determined as part of the development of your proposed activities that you feel you require city services and you want to apply for them, you must obtain a quote from the City of New Westminster Special Events Department. You can do so by emailing specialevents@newwestcity.ca. Requests were begun being possible to make starting yesterday, and you have right up until October 22nd, 2024. Generally, it will take us about 3 weeks for us to generate a quote for you. So we'd certainly recommend that if you are thinking of applying for city services, that you write us immediately so that we can begin that process of developing those quotes for you. One aspect that is new with the grant program this year in 2025 is that we are bringing the program in alignment with a part of the policy that has always been in place, and that is that the City of New Westminster's facilities, licenses, and permits are not awarded as part of city services. This is because city facilities are already subsidized and offered at lower rates, and therefore they are ineligible for city services. If you are thinking that you need to use a city facility, we recommend that you find out the value of what the rental cost would be, and you apply for that amount in cash. Please put any city facilities, licenses, or permits in your cash request. Next, I'll speak to you about multi-year funding. And again, this is new. In this year's intake, organizations are now eligible to apply for up to 5 years for previously funded activities. So if you are brand new to the program, you can apply for 1 year. But if you have previously been funded through this program and you are applying for the exact same activities and you have successfully delivered those activities, you can make a request for up to 5 years for funding of those activities. So that can be a request for 2 years, for 3 years, for 4 years, or for 5. You will get to decide in your application how many years you're asking for, and whatever you choose is the amount that you would be eligible for, and if you are awarded, that would be the term in which you would receive that funding. There would be no opportunity during that term to apply another time. You would be assured the funding for the amount of years that you have been awarded. And we feel that this will assist your organization in financial security, in knowing that this funding is coming to you for a consistent amount of years, allowing you to reallocate the administration time dedicated towards writing these grants towards the delivery of your programs, of your services, of your proposed activities. And so this is the understanding of the work that you do, that writing these grants take time. And so our commitment to you is that these grants would offer you more certainty in your long range planning. Hence the raising of the amount of years that you can apply for. Historically, it has been only at a maximum of 3 years, and now we have changed it in the program this year to make it up to 5 years. In order to be eligible for multi-year funding, organizations must have a clear mandate that is defined in your bylaws and the structure of how the board functions. You must have a significant history of programming and service in New Westminster. We're saying more than 4 years. You must have demonstrated financial stability, and that means matching funds for the project. That the City of New Westminster is not the only source of revenue for your project, and you can identify other sources of revenue, including sponsorships, donations, ticket sales, registration fees, other grants from other foundations and other levels of government. And we also will accept in-kind contributions if you are able to value them. This can include volunteers, this can include contributions of subsidized venues from other organizations, any donations or support that you are receiving from the community. We need, lastly, to see that your organization has capacity and sustainability in order to deliver these programs for more than 1 year at a time. And so we do our best to define these, and you can actually find the clear definition of each of these terms in this slide, in the slide deck presentation that we've made available on the City of New Westminster's website under the Grants tab. I'd like to highlight that the sports travel grant is unique in the way that it works. It is considered under Portfolio 2, and it is available for individuals or sports teams. It is assistance provided for provincial, national, or international competitions. It is provided after the travel to the event has been completed. There's a separate application form that we can direct you to. You will see it in the grant platform when you apply. Historically, these amounts have been between $250 to $500 for travel support. And so if you are interested in this one, please contact us for more clarity to get you to that separate application form. Highlighting the program budget, each portfolio 1, 2, and 3 have their own separate budget. City services are considered a separate budget away from the main budget of cash dedicated towards the 3 portfolios. We have funds that are expected to be at the same amount in 2025 as what we have received in 2024, but the city's budgeting process is still ongoing, and so we do not yet have confirmation of what the fund will be in the next year, but we are anticipating that it will be at the same level as it has been in 2024. One thing to note about this program is that funds that are not used in 2024 in this year that have been awarded will not be carried over into 2025. And similarly, funds that are awarded to organizations in 2025 will not be able to be carried over. The pot does not grow, is perhaps the term I would use. We have set funding for each fiscal year, and we are not able to carry funds over. And so the fund that is set through the budgeting process is the allocation that we have. What I would suggest in terms of you getting started with your application is find all the information, all the important documents that will support your the development of your application on the City of New Westminster's website, newwestcity.ca/grants. At the bottom, there's a section that will open titled Important Documents. It will provide you with the application guide. It will provide you with the grants policy and a document entitled Program Process. It's a simple one-page document that you will recognize this slide as the top half of that document. It will show you the steps on how to apply. The first thing that we're going to ask you to do is to register an account with our brand new grant software. Then on October 1st, the application will become available. and you will be able to begin applying for this year's intake. Please determine if you need city services and write us at special events at newwestcity.ca as soon as possible to begin the process of developing your quote. And the submission deadline for applications this year is October 28th, 2024 at midnight, and it is extremely important that you meet that deadline. We will not be accepting late applications this year. And so our timeline through the fall will be a grant information session yesterday and this evening. The recording of tonight's session will be posted online for people to view. The application intake window opens on October 1st, and requests for city services are possible up until October 22nd. The application intake closes the deadline on October 28th. During the month of November, there will be an application review of all the applications that we have received, and grant decisions will be communicated to applicants at some point in December, and then funds will begin to be distributed sometime early in 2025. Wayne. Looking for the application form. As I've stated, I recommend that you onboard into the grant software program now. You can do that immediately. It is available through the city's website on the grants page. To sign up, you will be brought to a URL, newwestcity.grantplatform.com. You will recognize the branding of the city's community grants program. You'll be asked to register with an email address and create a password. And this account will store all of your applications that you create going forward. And so previously we had been using Benevity, which was a program that stored your application data in a cookie in your browser. This new platform allows you to save throughout and keeps the information stored in the grant platform itself so that there's less likelihood of it being lost. So we ask you to create that account now on October 1st. The application form will become available in the grant platform. All applications will use the same form unless you're applying for the sports travel grant. And you can begin by selecting the appropriate portfolio. It will ask you to name your application. We ask you to name your application with the name of your organization that you're applying on behalf of. And please know that if you're applying for multi-year and for city services requests, a longer form will be created in the software for you to fill out. There will be more questions if you are looking for this type of support from the City of New Westminster. So as I stated, what's new, a new requirement is that you must register and you must create a password in order to access the grant software. If you have any challenges with the onboarding process, please email me at grants@newwestcity.ca. I would be more than happy to help you with that process and get you onboarded into the system. With the new software, it allows you to save your answers throughout. At the very bottom of each page, there's a save and next or a save and continue button. We encourage you to press that button often. Don't lose your information as you're working on it. You can leave and come back, and when you are finally completed your application, do remember to hit the submit button. You can come back and edit your application right up until the date of the deadline. Additionally, this new software offers the ability to print your application form upon the submission of your application, so you can retain all of the information that you filled out. And we recognize in this transition year that you may not have last year's answers. And because we're not using Benevity, your browser will not populate it. Do not worry. We have taken the time to export everyone's applications for the last 7 years. We have them on file, and we would be more than happy to provide you with last year's answers so in the development of your application for this year. So if you have any technical issues with use of the software or any aspect of applying, please email me at grants@newwestcity.ca. Okay, next I would like to provide you with a very quick application demo just to show you exactly what it's like to onboard and to fill out the first few tabs to check your eligibility, and then move through all the remaining tabs and then hit submit. So Okay. Here you will see this is newwestcity.grantplatform.com in your UL in your web browser. You begin by logging in with your email address. You can see throughout this page that it has important information that you will need in order to apply, as well as clarity on what the 3 grant portfolios are. You click this button, continue. If you have already created an account, it will just ask you to log in. And if you haven't, then it will ask you to fill out some information in order to create an account. And then it will bring you to this first page so that you can, so that you can apply. And that is right here, this first page. Again, important information throughout. Here in this, when the application comes online, you will see this happy face and you will want to click Start Application. And down here, you can see another application. All of your applications will populate down below here in this section. So you begin by clicking Start Application. Please read through all the instructions that we've put into the software to assist you in filling all of this out. You begin by selecting your portfolio. You put in your organization's name. You then pick the portfolio in which you're submitting under, hit Save and Next, and then you begin to move through these questions. You identify if you are a nonprofit society, if you're applying on behalf of a New Westminster community partner, or oops, are you? Yes, I am. You can see that some questions will bring up further pop-up menus, but I'm applying on behalf of a New Westminster-based organization. I'm applying for a city grant up to $20,000. I'm applying for a program or an event. I am not involving teachers with New Westminster schools, and I do not have any bursaries, scholarships, donations. And then I come down to the bottom of the second eligibility tab and I click this green button, check eligibility. And it says, congratulations, your application to the New Westminster Community Grants Program is eligible and you may proceed with completing your application. If you find that you fill out these first 2 eligibility tabs and you've been found ineligible and you think that's a mistake, please contact me and I would be more than happy to provide you clarity on eligibility and ensure that if you are eligible and been found ineligible by mistake, that we correct your application so that you can continue through the rest. So here you will see tabs across the top. As you fill it out, you will have applicant information, application description, application details, budget, supporting documents, and then a declaration at the end. And so here you are providing us with contact information about your organization, who you are, so that we know more about you. And in the next tab, you will provide a description of the proposed activities that you're wanting to undertake. And moving through, you can save throughout, save and next. And here you provide us with the timeline, more details of the proposed activities that you're planning to undertake. And as I'm moving through these tabs, I hope that I realize I'm moving fast, but I want to reassure you that one thing that has not changed with the New Westminster Community Grants Program is that all of the questions from last year are identical to the questions that we're using in this application form this year. So you do not have to worry too much that we've changed the program in any major way. It looks beautiful with the new grant software and we've been able to provide wonderful branding, but the actual process of applying has predominantly stayed the same, with the questions being exactly as you've known them in past years. So the only small changes that we've made to increase accessibility is to shift some of the language within the questions to use more plain language so that you have a better understanding of what it is that we're asking. Next, I'm going to bring you to the budget tab, and I'm going to let you know that there is going to be a video uploaded at the top of this page right here that you will be able to watch to have a fulsome explanation of how to fill out this budget tab. Here you will identify all your revenues for your organization, and down below you will fill out all your expenses. In each column, we ask you to fill out the previous fiscal year's actual expenses. In this column, we ask you to fill out your current fiscal year's projected revenues and expenses. So this would be your budget for your current fiscal year. Then we ask you to zoom in a little and show us what the revenues will be for your proposed activities. So we recognize that in this column that I'm moving through might include other programs that aren't funded, might include administration. This is your sort of overall and global budget for your organization for your fiscal year, whereas your proposed activities might have more detail and be a smaller amount than what your overall fiscal budget would be. Additionally, in this last tab, you're able to click in here and write details about what it is that you're applying for. So if you're looking for venue rental and you knew that it cost you, sorry, I've done this again. I'm going to move down to expenses. And if you are looking to rent a venue rental, and last year it cost you $2,000, and this year it's going to cost you $2,500. But you're only using it for one day in your proposed activities, and so you're actually only anticipating it costs $250. You're going to ask the city to support that venue rental cost in the amount of $250, and you will give us an indication of where this venue is. And you could say city facility in Queensboro. And that would be enough to satisfy the description of what this expense is. So you rent it all last year, you plan to rent it throughout the year, but for the funding that you're requesting for, it's only going to cost you this much, $250 for the one-time use, and you're asking the city to help support the expense. So as I said, there'll be a full video that will go into much more detail into how to fill out this revenue and expense form. And it is empty because we recognize there aren't any sort of pre-filled out revenue or expense types, because we recognize the diversity of all of the nonprofit sector, that you talk about the way that your money and your revenues and expenses are spent in so many different ways, that we want you to be able to fill this out so that it's reflective of your organization. And it makes sense to you, and we will do our best to make sure that it also makes sense to us. And so we ask for, as I said, some information about your last fiscal year, what you're planning for this fiscal year, what your proposed activities will be, and how you are asking for the City of New Westminster's grant funding. After you have filled out those top sections, you will have these proposed activities in 2025 column, and it will total up to right here. And as I said, it was $250, and the revenue type would be city cash grant funding for $250 in this year. It creates this amount down at the bottom, and similarly in the revenue or the expenses, excuse me, it creates another $250 down here. With the software, you need to come down and manually enter those numbers: $250 in revenue, $250 in expenses, and it demonstrates that you have a balanced budget. One of the requirements of this application form and participation in this program, in order to receive funding, you must submit a balanced budget. Your revenues must equal your expenses. And so you, as I've stated, in identifying your expenses, we have the $250 in total expenses and the $250 that we've identified as the itemized use of city grant. You would then bring that $250 request here. And this will give you the total request that you would be asking of the city. After that, you hit Save and Next, and you move through. This is where you will upload documents that we require in order to know more about your organization, and especially if you're considering the larger grant type and multi-year funding. And then lastly, there is a declaration page where you confirm that you have filled this out to the best of your knowledge, and you agree to some more of these clauses here. And then finally, at the end, you hit this green button again, Submit Application. Touching more on the budget submission process, all applications have an input field for the financial requests of the city at the bottom of the budget tab. I just showed you that as you scroll down to the bottom of that. To determine the number to input into this field, applicants must enter all the details of last year's fiscal statements, your current fiscal budget, and the budget for your proposed activities in 2025. The template will calculate all the revenues and expenses that you, the applicant, will then input down below for your proposed activities. Applicants must submit a balanced budget. Both the revenue expenses section must clearly identify city funding and city services. So in the top, you will identify a line item that says you're asking for city services in a certain amount. And the expenses section, you will have an itemized list of what all the funding will be allocated towards. We ask that you please quantify and label any in-kind contributions, volunteers, donated goods, free use of equipment, facilities, or services, anything that is non-cash that is being contributed to your project or your organization. We welcome you identifying that in your budget sheet. For any organization that fills out gaming grants from the province of British Columbia, you would already be aware of how to value and recognize in-kind contributions in your budget sheet. And we also welcome you to do that identifying for us in the budget tab. As I said, there will be a video recorded and embedded into the budget tab that you will be able to watch that will be able to answer your questions in filling out the budget tab in the application form. But should you have any questions, I will be available to answer them and provide more clarity. Please email grants@newwestcity.ca. And we will make sure that we schedule some time to help you get that clarity in how to fill out the budget tab. After October 28th, we move into the application review stage, where we will work with the grant advisory committees to review all of the applications and determine whether grant applications will receive funding or not. In December, we will begin making notifications, letting people know the results of their applications, and begin distributing funds. If you are approved for funding, you have until December 31st, 2025. You must complete your activities within the calendar year, and you will be required to submit an online grant report form. We aren't moving forward with the snapshots of success or the post-evaluation forms that you've been accustomed to. Please, for 2024 and this fall, before the end of this year, use the snapshot of success and the post-event evaluation form. But for awards for 2025, there will be a new reporting process next fall. And we anticipate that will be much easier, much more straightforward, and will allow you to tell a better story of how your organization delivered your proposed activities over this next year. As part of being awarded a grant from the City of New Westminster, there are requirements involved, and we will outline those requirements within the grants award letter to you. We will provide details on how we expect you to provide land acknowledgements, how you will acknowledge the city in your promotions and marketing, where you can get access to the city's logo to include it on your posters and in your collateral. We will also provide directions on how you will measure your environmental impact. And should you be applying for city services and putting on a festival and an event, we will be working with the FEST team to ensure the success of your event. And you will get to know them all really quite well over the course of 2025. If over the course of at any point as you're planning your activities, you need to make changes to the grant, those changes need to be communicated and approved to the grant staff team here at the City of New Westminster. You cannot change the scope of your funded proposed activities. You need to email us and inform us of the change prior to going forward with those. So please send an email to grants@newwestcity.ca, and we will be able to provide more clarity over what the funds can and can't be used for in terms of changing the scope of your proposed activities. Here we have a list of staff advisors who are subject matter experts within the subject fields within each portfolio. So if you're applying in portfolio 1 and you're a childcare grant or an environment grant or a community wellness grant, the first 3 city staff members will be able to provide you with answers about eligible and ineligible expenses, about previously funded projects and proposed activities. We'll be able to help you through the process. Similarly, in portfolio 2, you'll have these sport, arts, festival events, and heritage. Any general questions or inquiries about the grant application and the software itself, please direct those to me and send them to grants@newwestcity.ca. If you have a very technical question and you send it to any of these staff advisors, it's very likely that they will forward it on to me anyway. So we will work with you to support you in getting you clarity to your questions as you develop your application. Lastly, I just want to say that there's a frequently asked questions document that can be found on the grants webpage. If you go to newwestcity.ca/grants, you will be able to find all of the important documents for developing your application at the very bottom of the web page in a section that opens up under important documents, and you can find a frequently asked questions document there that may help provide more clarity for you as you develop your application. Thank you very much for the opportunity to provide this overview of the New Westminster Community Grants Program. I've enjoyed taking the last 40 minutes or so to walk you through how the program has gone through a review, but largely remains the same as it historically has and as you've known it. And we would be more than happy to have you put your questions in the chat and have some answers provided to you. I ask that your questions be somewhat broad and general and not specific to your organization or your scenario as you develop your application, so that it's the most applicable to the most amount of people who are here this evening. If you do have questions that are specific to your organization and the development of your application, if there is additional time, we would be more than happy to stay back and answer those. But I don't anticipate that we will be spending the entire 2 hours as planned here this evening. I think we will just answer the questions that we've received up till now. So I'm opening up the chat, and I am looking through.
I've answered most of them so far, Stephen.
Superb.
But
Okay.
I will say Bob's added a question about residents associations be eligible for a grant for a community event. So that's actually a great question. The residents associations are eligible for a grant that's administered through legislative services. And that's primarily to cover sort of meeting expenses and the expenses of being a part of a residents association. But a residents association would absolutely be able to apply for a grant for a community event, provided that residents association actually sort of had an entity that was like the association. They don't have to be a registered nonprofit or a registered charity, but they would require, sort of a bank account that's theirs and not an individual's. So provided that they that there is sort of a committee, whether it's formally appointed or whether it is, a group of neighbors just getting together, they would be eligible. They just simply, we wouldn't be able to send any funds to an individual.
Okay. Thank you, Christina, for your question. I'd be more than happy to read this out and answer it. Under the cash grant, can an organization apply for more than one activity? I.e., could a nonprofit apply for a small capital grant plus professional development? So for clarity, we are asking you to not develop more than one application, and your organization can take a more holistic view in the terms of the proposed activities that you will be offering within 2025, and you can put together a packaged application of a variety of different activities that you would deliver over the course of the year. They do not all have to be identical activities, but they do need to be proportionate to your organization's capacity and to your financial sustainability, and would be appropriately delivered within New Westminster. So
Well,
Certainly, we do want you to take a more broader view at your organization across a year, not thinking that you would apply in one portfolio and then try and apply in a second portfolio. We're looking as more holistically as a single application.
I'll also add that there is a nonprofit bursary program that is available through the city's economic development department. Starting in 2025, in the next intake, not the one we're just about to go to, that program will actually get brought into the overarching grant program. But there is a current bursary program for professional development. It's specific to Vantage Point, and you can find out some information about that on Vantage Point's website.
Tasha has a question that asks, could the funds cover hiring a part-time person to run the program we're seeking the grant for? There is a provision within the grants policy that states that third-party event organizers fees are not an eligible expense. We consider those ineligible, but you can put in a provision for your staff to deliver programming, or for an example, if you were to hire an artist to deliver an arts workshop where they are the primary deliverer of the programming, that would be acceptable. Next, we have Kathy with a question. Is there a general measure for in-kind volunteer time measured in monetary amounts? I'm going to defer to the province of British Columbia's gaming grants, who have historically valued volunteer time at approximately $20 an hour, knowing that specialized volunteer, if you are a lawyer or some sort of specialized volunteer or donated contribution of time, has more value than a general volunteer may or may not have. But ultimately, we aren't setting those amounts. We would think that you as an organization would be going sort of with industry best practices around what valuing these types of in-kind contributions would be worth. And then Cheryl asks, does a group need to have a bank account in order to obtain funds? We are aware that registered nonprofits and charities have the paperwork that allow banks to create bank accounts, whereas informal and unregistered community groups would not have access to banking services like a bank account. And so in an instance where your community group was deemed eligible to apply for grants, I believe that we would be able to issue funds to an individual. And next, we have Tasha asking, are there specific limitations as to what funding can and cannot be used for? Throughout the application guide, there are a list of what we deem eligible and ineligible expenses. I would recommend that you pick the portfolio that you're applying or you're intending to apply under, and then look at the subject area, and you will see a list of those. If you're still uncertain and you would like more clarity, please email me at grants@newwestcity.ca, and I would be more than happy to answer your questions around eligible and ineligible expenses. Bob asks, what dollar limit would apply for a community event organized by a residents association in a neighborhood? Bob, I believe we've identified that organizations, especially if they're delivering this activity for the very first time, would be only eligible for the cash grant up to $20,000. And I would not have any recommendation beyond that, just to say that that would be the maximum that anyone could apply under that. We also offer that historically, in previous years, anyone applying in that grant type has received between $500 to $7,000. We have another question from Christina, who states that their organization is new to operating in New Westminster and wonders if there's a minimum amount of time of operating in New Westminster for cash grants, or is that just the multi-year? That's correct. If you have the ability to prove that you have an office or are based in New Westminster and you are new here and you are delivering services within New Westminster and not in surrounding communities, you would be eligible for the cash grant. And we understand that if your group or your organization is forming immediately now and you're seeking funding, we do not have a minimum in terms of how long you've been operating in New Westminster. You would not be eligible for the cash and city services grant, the larger one, but you could still apply for the cash grant. Excellent. Thank you to everyone who's put these questions in the chat. Very much appreciated. I want to thank you all for coming out and giving us your time on this evening. And I want to acknowledge the important work that nonprofits do in New Westminster. We understand how your organizations impact the community here in New Westminster, the positive work that you do, and the Community Grants Program is designed to support that work. We are deeply appreciative of it, and we know how hard the work is, and we are trying to make sure that this program is designed to be responsive so that you can continue to be as effective as we've known you to be for New Westminster residents for many, many years. And we look forward to continuing that for many years ahead as well. So thank you very much, and we wish you great success in developing your application.